everybody, to this week's episode of Enough.
Hey everybody, welcome back.
I hope you are all doing well, and I'm glad that you are stuck around this long to I don't know what week we are. I was going to do something there, but I forgot what I was going to say. Anyways, for today's topic, we are, actually, it started out as talking about creation, and then from there, as a little bit kind of pre-recording chit chat, we kind of want to take it a different direction. So still kind of talking about creation in a sense, but rather like what God did in creation that should affect our lives today. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with like the chapter 1 Genesis account where God created the world, and light and animals and sea and the firmaments. And I'm sure more of you are even familiar with what he says after he creates all of that. And he says it was good, or it is good. And so that really struck me today. As I was kind of looking through a few quotes and kind of turned to some like dialogue on Genesis. And it really hit me because in today's world, I don't think we really focus on the good too much, like especially right now and what's going on. You know, we're super close to the election and we all know that's something else this year. And I think what we really need to do is focus on it is good rather than all the hate that's going around, you know?
Yeah, I think when we think about what's good and that things were originally created good, we've got to go back to the beginning. And when you take a step back and you think about how we were created and that we as humans were originally created good, the world was created good, it gives you a little bit more of a positive mindset when things aren't going super great around you. I mean, even right now with wildfires everywhere, and I don't know, like if you're in a place that gets hit by hurricanes or tornadoes and things like that, a lot of times it's like, why? How could these bad things happen to us? But I think if we go back to the beginning and realize that creation was originally made good and we were originally made good, it gives us a little bit more of a positive mindset to think about how to approach these things moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it takes going back to the beginning, like you said, and it also takes kind of you like removing yourself from the chaos of today. So like an example that comes to mind was I think it was last week. Me and my roommates, we woke up at like 3 a.m. to go hike Camelback Mountain here in Phoenix, and we did it so we could like see the sunset or sunrise, not sunset. It's too early for the sunset. But so we got up to this mountain. We woke up too, like it wasn't too early, but it was early enough where we had some extra time, just kind of like in the dark on the top of this mountain, which was, it was so beautiful because you saw all of Phoenix. And I just remember sitting there, like lying down on a rock. I was exhausted, and I just like was engulfed in silence. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is where you find God. Like I feel so at peace and still. And I really just kind of felt like that it is good kind of deal, you know? And I think it just takes stepping backwards and remembering that we're not in charge of what's going on in our lives. Like it's all God's story, you know? And that was
Yeah,
just something that like came to mind as we were talking about this.
absolutely. I mean, I love when I get to see the sunrise and sunset, so that story really
It's
stands
beautiful,
out
yeah.
to me. And I think that, I don't know, I've been asked before, like, what's a moment when you really felt God's presence? And when
Mm-hmm.
I think about it, I immediately go back to when I went to this Greek Orthodox church camp in Greece, and we were in a bus on the edge of a mountain, basically, like going between sites. It was really awesome. And I took a moment to kind of just sit in my seat and not talk to my friends. And I looked out the window, and it was just like the Mediterranean Sea for as far as I could see. And just like in that moment, like I just felt totally encompassed by like the goodness of creation. I could feel
Right.
that God was there, God had created this, and God was allowing me to partake in it, which I think was a really beautiful moment. And I think when we let our minds kind of slow down for a second and appreciate the nature that's around us, we really do feel that level of goodness.
Right. We just have to find the present and stop dwelling on the future and the past, which is so hard to do. But that's the only place where God is going to be. He's only going to be in the present with us. Um, yeah. Yeah. We went to the IB, different years, but I remember those experiences too. Just being surrounded by it was a different culture than America, but just such prettier sights to see. Um, Kind of moving on, another really beautiful quote that I found today was from St. Basil, and it's talking about God and his love for us and how he kind of creates the world. So It reads, "The ever-existing Almighty God was not forced to create the universe. Rather, in his goodness and loving kindness, he freely chose to do so. And the fact that the Lord created the universe out of nothing stands in clear contrast to the creation myths of the surrounding cultures in the ancient world." And just the key thing about that quote is it says God didn't have to make us. He could have just, well, I don't know what he would do, but he's God. I don't know what he does. I'm not at that level, nor will ever be. But he chose to make us out of love to be in communion with us. And though we fell, with Adam and Eve, we are still redeeming ourselves and getting back to God. And we just have to find that in everything we do. And I don't know, that quote just really stuck out, and I wanted to share that because it's so amazing to really think, God just could have not. He could have stopped before he created, but he chose to do so. And even with all of our imperfections, he chose to, make his perfection through all of us.
I really liked that quote. I think that it reminds me in some ways, because you talk about how God created us out of love. Like he didn't have to. That was, his decision. And I think something that you and I know think about a lot is vocation and these ideas of how can we love God as part of what we're doing in our lives. And I think one of those ways is when you think about God made creation out of love, God made us out of love. How can we return that love? We can return it by loving not only our neighbors, but also our creation, like the things that God made for us to enjoy and for him to, I guess, enjoy watching us. And I think that when we show that love towards the environment, maybe it's in the little things we do, like recycling or just even sitting outside and enjoying the moment. I think that those are some of the small ways that we can start returning that love to God. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes when I think about loving God, I'm like, what does that even mean?
Right. How do you love?
Pray, but how do you love someone you technically have never met, but is with you all the time?
Right. It's really hard, and it's in those moments where you can just like we were talking about, sit and see his creation. Whether that's just as you're sleeping, just contemplating like the vastness and greatness that is God, or the saints. I know when I was, going back to the story when we went on the hike, I was lying down on a rock, and I just thought of Saint Joseph the Hesketh, Saint Erasmus of Capellanum, all of these guys and saints and other saints throughout the church history. They've slept in caves and their pillows were rocks. And I was first off, I could never do that. Count me out of all of that. I don't know. I'm going to stick with my pillow. Good for you guys. But because they had so much love for God, and they found so much grace and joy and happiness in him, it didn't matter what they were doing, because they were just constantly praying God, where a rock or a pillar or whatever they were in, or where they were, was comfortable enough, because it gave them strength, with the little sleep that they got, to pray to God more, to give them strength to get through the next day and the next day until they ultimately reached his kingdom after they reposed.
Absolutely. I remember, was it the cave of St. Yerasimos we got to visit when we were at IV, and you crawl through this little hole in a cave in the rock, and they're like, oh, here's the bed that he slept in, and the bed is like a boulder.
Yeah, it's not a bed. It's not a bed. It's not.
It's just a rock that's kind of long looking and could possibly fit most of a human body. Yeah. And I was like, it's amazing that out of love for God, this saint could accept this as the place where he could grow closest to God. Underground, really in creation when you think about it.
Right.
That was me. And even when you think back to the beginning of monasticism, and when the first monks were going out into the wilderness, out into the desert of Egypt. I mean, when I think of the beauty of creation, a lot of times I think about the beautiful green grassy hills and trees and beautiful blue waters. And then you've got the desert where there's it feels like there's nothing. There's sand, but it feels like there's nothing. And so to find beauty in that even, and to find that as a way to grow closer to God, I mean, kind of blows my mind. I don't know about you. I don't really live by a desert, even though it's really hot here.
Yeah, no, it really does blow my mind. And it just shows that God is enough, and that he'll see us through everything and anything that we come across in life. If these spiritual fathers and mothers can go live amongst the emptiness that is the desert and the heat, with little water, not really any food, and can still trust in God that he'll provide for them, that he is enough for them, then what does that say about us who have, you know, these lavish things in life, you know, houses, plentiful food, grocery stores, all of this, you know, it really, it makes me think how, you know, grateful I am for and blessed for all of this stuff around me.
Yeah, when we turn back to the earth and really get down to the little things, we really can realize that God is enough.
Of course, yes. And we'll see you guys all next week.